Yes, indeed.
Definitely lost a useful and important piece of paper.
Which one?
I don't want to ask.
The one there.
No.
I'm glad you came to us.
No, that one's I know they're there.
This is the 58th?
Ninth.
59th?
59th.
Thank you, Ed.
Why not?
59th hour of Adventurers Wanted. Just a little pre-show spiel so you're aware. It's a relaxed performance.
Yeah, I'll be
The
fine.
lights will stay like this. There won't be any
Possibly.
sounds or noises. The lights will stay like this, barring hotel lights being a bit unusual, in which case they will go off and we will have these for a few minutes whilst we fix them.
That happened in the last show I was at.
Yeah.
The lights went out and it totally fit in with the plot.
Well, here's hoping
This happened a couple of times with us where it's timed well, but because we're here so often, not always.
We had the lights come on in the middle of our show a couple of days ago and that was
yeah, that's harsher.
Anyway, opening spiel.
Sorry, yes.
Sorry, relaxed performance means that there won't be any round noises. If you need to pop out and then come back, that's absolutely fine. And we have a relaxed attitude to noise and movement from the audience for the benefit of people who would struggle staying still and silent for an hour. You don't look like you needed a hearing loop headset, otherwise I would offer to help. But if you need anything, my name's Chloe. I'll just be over there. I will now hand you over to Alex, who is our games master for this hour.
Hello!
Hey.
Hello, stream, if you're watching. Welcome, I'm Alex, I am the Games Master for this hour and for the next hour after this. What this is, in case you don't know, Adventurers Wanted is a tabletop role-playing game. What that means is that the people sat either side of me are playing characters, unique, individual characters. I am playing everything else. These people will tell me how they want their character to interact with the world, and I will ask them to roll dice. Their success or failure on rolling those dice will determine whether they succeed majestically or fail dismally. That's the basics of the game. The story so far. The characters around the table are all members of the crew of a ship known as the Spirit of the Horizon. It's a scientific, military research vessel. It's found itself in a strange new world after it was sent to find a weapon that could help them win a war at home. They found a strange magical tablet fizzing with overpowered energy, a power they'd never seen before. They also found an ancient, elder, angry god, who they awakened and who laid waste to the world around them. Fearing for their lives, the captain made an executive decision, used the magic within the tablet, and transported them. She knew not where. They found themselves floating, strangers in a strange new world. They've been here now for maybe 2 weeks, in the land of Havmar. They've met many strange species, had some strange battles against beasts and monsters, most of which they'd never seen before. Most recently, after being asked to go on a diplomatic task by one of the queens of the Troquin Caldera, a tall, haughty, pious lady, they travelled to an island known as Rastul. Here, two ancient species, the Komodo, small, lizard-like humanoids, and the Katafu, tall, thick-skinned, greyish, mottled-coloured, but ugly, are waging a long war. Their two cities stand on either side of a vast battlefield filled with corpses, fresh and ancient. There was a small scuffle on the banks where they landed, and they followed a group of Katafu up to the town and met with the leader of this group of Katafu. They also met his son, a Katafu by the name of Rom, and his slightly nervous but opportunistic friend, Zan. After being invited into the house to stay, Rom suggested that they go with him on an adventure. He suggested that they go to a party. The difference is, the party they are going to is in the opposite city. The party attempted to disguise themselves using various things within the room. One of our party made a very good-looking shark costume. And they made their way out to the back to meet up with their party members, who they found had disguised themselves as the Komodo lizards that live on the other side. These guys took some potions of disguised self to also look like the Komodos, although they kept the clothing and the disguises that they had made themselves.
Oh,
And
I
then,
took the handkerchief off my head.
oh, you took the handkerchief off. And made their way down into some tunnels that ran through the ground. As they were making their way down the tunnels, about halfway down, they found a small section which is stonework rather than carved through the earth. And one of the members of the party vaguely recognized the carvings and the symbology on the rocks as it being something to do with the temple in which they found the tablet to start with. That's where we finished off. That's where we will restart. Before we do, I'd just quickly like to ask each player to introduce themselves, the name of their character, what their character does, and something about them that would make them distinguishable other than being dressed as a shark. Start on my right.
My name is Isla. I am playing Noggin, who is a gnome rogue. I am the ship's dentist, and I collect shiny things and teeth.
I'm Naomi. I'm playing Brina. I'm the ship's arcane researcher. I am a gnome wizard, so we're the gnome crew, and I panic a lot. I was getting more confident. There was an incident with the captain and some acid. I'm now not as confident as I once was. But I'm building up. This feels like we're not getting into fights. Like it's all going to go well. We're doing some good peacekeeping. Like this will be great.
My name's Ed. I am a character called Gwendolyn Skull, who is in fact male and a fighter. He's also the master of the Spirit of the Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, first time for everything. And I have a skull put on my face, which I hope is still there after I've taken this disguised self potion.
Yeah, you still have a skull on your face.
I'm a AAA rated
I am the master
executive
of
protection
the
agent,
ship, which
and
is,
you're
I
the
suppose,
most
like
wanted
its
hitman
discipline
in the
to do.
world.
But no one seems to pay attention to me. That's a thing for me, though.
My name's Reese, and I'm playing
Some kind of
Galbert Twinkletoes, the halfling monk. Galbert is a particularly kind individual. He does like to help out as much as he can.
And
When
dive
this-
through window. Sorry.
When this whole thing began, he was just a humble cleaner, but has rised surprisingly quickly through the ranks to the station of quartermaster.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So, our party finds themselves in this tunnel. Small, enclosed, maybe 10 foot high, 5 foot wide. Widens out in certain places. They're currently stood by a short section, maybe 30 foot long. To their right-hand side is this mysterious stonework, but the rest of the tunnel itself is made out of earth.
Can I take a second to stop and examine the stonework a bit closer?
You can.
What would I be wrong for that?
Roll me... I don't know, what would you like to find out about the stone?
I essentially want to know why. I want to know where specifically in the temple I saw it before.
Roll me an insight check then.
Insight, okay. Yes, just need to check my armor. 19.
It reminds you of some of the carvings and stonework that you saw on the outside of many of the buildings. If you remember back, the temple itself basically rose out of the water like an island, except the entire island was temple, and there was no real sense of it being on a land. In that sense, this looks like that kind of work. It doesn't look like it's the inside of any specific temple, but
So it looks like the outside of the island.
it looks like, yeah, very similar to all the stuff you saw on the outside of the island. The only difference that you've noticed is, whereas before on the rocks you saw images of the kinds of species that you are, here there are indications that some of these species on this world are in their place.
So for all of you lot, what's happened is I've stopped walking on the stone.
Your two companions, Rom and Zan, have carried on walking. They pay no heed whatsoever to this wall. Roll me insight.
18.
Oh. Same.
16.
You all get the impression that this is not the first time they have been down this tunnel. This is a tunnel that they have gone down before. They walk with youthful exuberance. They're chatting and laughing and making jokes. They're obviously very good friends. They both carry torches as they stalk off into the distance. And one of them turns around, Rom turns around to you and he says, "Well, hurry up! We don't want to miss the beginning!"
Yeah. Okay. Can I try and chip off a little bit of the stone pile up without damaging the carvings?
Yeah. It's made of sort of stone blocks, and the blocks themselves are carved, but there is mortar between them in some places. So there are like frames almost to their carvings. So you can try and take a little bit of that off if you want.
What am I rolling for that?
What are you going to use to chip it off?
I have a small knife.
It's going to be a strength check then.
Oh no, that's -1.
Oh.
Critical success.
Oh, wow.
You.
Research ain't no joke.
How would you like to do this?
I'm literally being really careful to avoid any of the imagery. Stop it. Philip is very happy with this. I'm just going to take out my small knife, and I'm going to, it's not a dagger, it's like a really tiny pen knife, and my component pouch, and just chip a tiny little bit off into it. Just flick it without damaging any of the carvings or anything like that. Just take a tiny bit.
You do so. How do you feel about that?
I feel not right. So in the moment, she's really excited because she's like, "This could be a massive breakthrough. We can really understand what's going on here." And then she does it, and she looks at the component pouch and she's like, "I just desecrated a temple. Oh no!" And she's just like, "Well, it's happened," and she's just going to put everything away and skulk off a little bit after Robin's done.
Wonderful. The rest of you, have you noticed Sabrina doing this?
Could not be
I would have been curious, but he's a lot smarter than I am, so I kind of back off.
Cool.
I'm just excited for this party. So I'm
Wonderful.
skipping along.
You're skipping ahead, trying to catch up. Your short gnome legs with your little shark tail bashing on the floor behind you.
Well, not gnome legs, they're Komodo legs now.
True.
It's still awesome.
Our two gnomes look like young, they're sort of child-sized lizards. One of them dressed in this kind of adorable shark costume. So you skip on. Do you catch up with the rest of your party?
I try to, yeah.
Cool. Wonderful. You guys make yourself away along the tunnels, away from this wall, and the tunnels go back to being a normal earthbound. As you look around you, you see they're obviously carved by hand, axe, pickaxe. The symbols of construction and digging are evident.
So they're not sort of like escape tunnels or anything. They do actually look constructed.
Roll me an insight.
Interesting. I haven't got a clue.
That's a
I've got a
critical
critical
failure.
failure. Yeah, I had a thought and it just disappeared.
They look like tunnels.
Gotcha.
Underground.
They look like tunnels that have been dug.
Fair enough.
Does the room that we walk into have any carvings in it, or is it a different stone completely to the one I just looked at?
You don't enter into any room.
Oh, okay.
You pass along a tunnel of which suddenly one side of it becomes this stone. You, because you did so well, get the impression that this tunnel was dug and then it hit this, and rather than it's gone around an obstacle along this flat wall and then carried on off.
So they've like just sort of gone around the temple. essentially.
They've gone around the temple in the digging of this tunnel.
Okay.
They've discovered the temple by accident rather than by design. You make your way back along the tunnel. It starts to slope up gently. Up to this point, you've mostly been going downhill. By the temple, it flattened out a little, and now it starts to head back up. And before long, you see ahead of you your two erstwhile allies stopped, and they're at the foot of a short ladder. They both put their torches out, and they reach up above their heads, and there is another small hatchway which they pop open, and they carefully, but with sort of abandon and glee, if you can imagine such a thing, as if they're super excited, but they're also can't quite contain themselves. They pop out into the top and they disappear beyond. Do you follow them out?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful.
I'd like to try and follow them out first, please.
Brina heads out first. So you've caught up with the rest of your party and you overtake them. You find yourselves in a lush forest.
Why, this is lush.
What's the ground around the hatch we're coming out of like? Is it soft?
Thick, soft, deep green moss.
Can I find a stick?
Oh, definitely.
I want to take a stick and I want to figure out the way we just came from with the tunnel, and I'm just going to carve an arrow into the ground.
Draw an arrow beside the hatch that points in the direction you came from.
In the tunnel, yes.
Cool. Absolutely. Everyone roll me a perception check, please.
How dark?
It's evening time, yeah.
12.
23. Sorry, 24.
No. I've got it now. I'm not going to curse another dice. That's not fair.
They're the DM's dice. You
yeah,
might want to
Can you
curse
roll
them.
it once then come back?
We'll just give him 20s.
Everyone, Gwendolyn, you find yourself in a forest.
fine.
You spend a lot of time on ships. Forests,
Yeah, really. I don't know.
not your milieu.
No. I want to chop this down and put it into mast.
Everyone else looks around and finds that they are tucked deep within a forest. Around them, thick vines and flowering plants hang from the vast branches of these strong, sturdy trees. The branches are overgrown and heavy laden. The ground is overgrown with weeds and sprouting flowers all over the place. A heady, sweet smell hangs in the air from the flowering plants. As it's evening time, there is that night blossom smell that comes from those clematis and flowering, climbing plants that fill the air with this soft, sweet tang of earth and nature.
I want to pick some flowers, please.
Absolutely.
They're not
We're just going
shiny.
to take this in and be very
No,
calmed
but
by
they're
this.
pretty.
That's true.
What colour flowers are you going to pick?
Well, are there all sorts of colours there?
Yeah, it's mostly, at this time of night, it's mostly sort of whites and silvers, but there are still a few blues and green, obviously green leaves around, so you
I'll pick a selection.
wonderful.
Selection of different colours. Obviously, shiny, I'm drawn to the silver ones, but
Yeah.
I want a few other ones as
I can
well.
help you press those if you like.
Okay, yeah.
A beautiful moment.
I need some booze.
Oh, here you go.
Ah!
I
You're
always carry around some for the captain. He's a problem.
Excellent. I intend to follow him. Right.
yeah, and he has a quick drink. Ahead of you, your partners have wandered off in a general direction, and in the air around you now and ahead of you, you can see the golden, red, and orange flickering of torchlight, and you can hear the sound of movement, of people making their way in and around, the crack of twigs breaking on the floor, the rustle of clothing and various objects as people pass around.
We follow the people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we follow our compatriots.
You're not. Well, yes, now.
Wonderful. As you head
Tenuous
In.
allies?
Yeah, it's good. With that.
you start to see the trappings of a town. It's similar, but slightly different to the town that you saw on the other side. Whereas the Katafu town was mostly made of basic stone, here everything is made of wood. The houses are wood. There are wooden carts stood around, crates, boxes. You do, however, notice here and there small piles of stone. Roll me perception checks.
15.
Critical fail, halfling luck. Much better, 22.
17.
I got 19, but obviously I'm overshadowed.
But you rolled it, so
That
that's
is
the important
true.
part.
That is a start.
You didn't need halfling luck. You
No,
just did
yeah,
it.
you see, I was there. This was a perception thing.
At first, you see that there are a small number of these, but as you move through the town, you start to see that there are a lot more, and they tend to be clustered together. They're all of a pretty much uniform size and height, and they're made of a loose rock piled up. Next to them are small, dark alcoves, in which is a small lit candle.
Do they appear to have some form of religious significance, or
Roll a religion check.
that's not bad for me actually? I think. Hang on, 1 second. Oh no, that's -1. That's 14.
How are you a monk with a religion of -1?
I'm not very smart.
Okay.
As you peer over to look at them and get more up closer to them, you can see that just inside this little alcove is a symbol. And the symbol is of a painted, silvery dragon's head facing towards the left. The candle is sat in the centre of the alcove, right beneath the dragon's head, which faces to the left as you look at it. And you get the sense that this is definitely some form of religious shrine or some place of offering to a religious deity.
Can I roll a religion check?
You can indeed.
17.
Yeah. The number of them and their locations at the sides of the towns and beside certain houses indicates to you that these are probably, if not graves, then intended to be honoured as such. And you come back to the thought that perhaps the nature of the war that they are engaged in and the length of time and the number of casualties that are on the battlefield and the number of bodies that you saw felled there, that this is their version of a burial.
I'm going to share that information with Galbert because he's
Cool.
interested.
Roll me a history check.
Well, everyone?
Is it to do with magic?
No, just Brina.
Is it to do with magic, technology, or alchemical?
No, just history.
Okay. Well, because if it's related to magical, I get to roll with advantage. 14 plus 7 is 21.
21. You have heard stories of this particular deity on board the ship from your ambassador to Havma, the gregarious storytelling birdman by the name of Plumage. He has talked about the Komodo, and he has mentioned that they have a racial deity who they believe heavily in and strongly in, who goes by the name of Mahakirio. You would also possibly know, this is where I'm going to hold, please. You would also possibly know what he is the god of, but I've lost my sheet of paper with that on. Nevertheless, there are a number of them around, and as you move through the town, there are more and more of them beside houses. People from their houses are walking out, and around you you see small groups of families, all dressed up. Don't worry about it. Thank you. All dressed up in fine robes, and they've got their finery on. Some of the smaller members of their families are dressed up in fancy dress.
Fit in. Perfect.
I put the handkerchief back on my head.
And they start to move in and out, coming out of their houses, closing the doors, locking them behind them. And roll me a perception check.
Everyone?
Yeah.
8.
By normal service resumed.
15.
21.
Both Galbert and Noggin, as you look, you see that they are all starting to head vaguely the same direction. They carry their torches above their heads, and as they meet with other members of each party, they exchange pleasantries and are engaged in quiet, hushed conversations as they move along. What would you like to do?
Can I see any evidence of a bar?
Where you currently stood, no. You are in a small clearing surrounded by various houses. It's not quite a road so much as it's sort of a pathway that wends its way through large trees, and here and there are houses. Occasionally some of them are built into the tree or up the tree.
Have Ram and Sam stopped?
Ram and Zam are continuing along.
Okay, I'll follow them.
Yeah, I'm going to follow them.
Yeah.
Cool.
Acting inconspicuous.
Oh, Rummy. You are dressed as you appear to be a Komodo. As you are wandering along, a small group of 3, one young child and 2 older Komodo, a male and a female, you presume. I don't know whether you're up on your
Physiognomy.
Komodo gender.
Komodo gendering, but you assume. They come out of a house beside you and they fall into step alongside the party, and they start making small talk with the group.
We can do small talk.
If it's in our language.
The elder one says in a strange language that you don't understand.
Can I roll to perform? Can I roll to perform being deaf?
Yes.
Thank you. If I go wrong, I get no bonus for it. That's a 2.
Wow. Did you just go along going,
No,
glad I'm not
no, Brina does not go along doing that.
She looks at you confused. She looks to her partner, and the two of them sort of look disconcerted, and they rush their small child away from the party, and they continue as they speed their step up as they head along this pathway. And
It
now
did not work.
it didn't not work. No, it didn't
too
work
many
though.
negatives in that sentence.
Kieran, you'll guide you. I don't
Wow,
know.
no, don't do that.
As you make your way along the path behind them, and they rush away from you, you start to see in front of you a larger house. The house itself is sort of the size of a larger villa, and it is made entirely out of wood. All over the outside of it, it's probably 2 stories high, and the top of it finishes just below the tree line. All over it grows this lush, rich, silver, vine-like plant covered in silver flowers. The smell that you smelt when you first arrived into the glade and into this area is much more powerful and potent here. And all around it, stuck into the ground, are these flaming torches, which also come together to form like a lit pathway. It has balconies and wooden structures on the outside of it, steps, ladders, and from beyond you hear the sound of joy, laughter, and fun. Ahead of you, as the small family scuttles off quickly, ahead of you, Rom and Zam turn back to look at you and sort of do that, come on, quickly, it's about to start. And they head forward into the house.
I hurry after them.
Me too.
Can I
As
take
do I.
a couple more flowers just before we go in?
You can indeed. Inside the villa is a large main atrium, in the centre of which is, heading away from you, a 10-foot long, 5-foot wide, 5-foot high block of water.
As in ice?
Roll an Arcana check.
Ooh, I think that's a 19. Yes, it is.
4.
Which means I rolled really badly because I've got a +7 modifier.
12.
You know that this is being held in place by magical means.
Placed by magic.
Inside of which small fish swim and flit, and there is a sound of merriment and music beyond. Above, to either side, is a higher level, and similar to inside the Katafu mansion, a balcony level with like a passageway, walkway around with a balustrade that can look down over the courtyard below. Thank you. Beyond, in the main room, as you pass through and the throng of Komodo grows stronger, one or two glance over at you with a slight confusion, but they wave back in a kind of strange way. Most of them ignore you. Most of them are not massively worried. They're intent on enjoying the party, and a few of them roll perception checks.
Critical
7.
fail, halfling luck. 17.
I just get a critical fail.
19.
7. So me and you are just...
Yeah.
Galbert, you see that a few of them, where they are in small groups, one of the members of the group is carrying a large object. The object varies. Some of them carry small chests, others carry large bowls filled with food, some of them carry large bunches of flowers. And they're all making their way with intent towards a room beyond the main atrium. As you wander forward, following the general direction of the crowd and your two compatriots, you find yourself in the centre of the villa, which is a courtyard filled with a large, shallow pool of water on which grow these large water lilies. Beyond, there is the sound of merriment, there is the sound of loud music being played and drumming, and as you make your way around the side of the pool and into the room beyond, you see the party in full swing. This is where the bar is. Komodo circle carrying platters with goblets on them, and a long, wide staircase makes its way up around the side of the room, and here again there is a raised level with a balcony around it. The party is going on. Roll me perception one more time. Lots to see here.
Yes.
13.
Another critical fail, halfling luck. If I could roll off the table, that would be great.
I can't even roll on my tray.
You're
17 again.
wonderful. Anyone who rolled less than 10 is very distracted. I guess you're distracted by the final sight of a bar.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Super.
Galbert, you notice that although mostly this room is filled with guests, it is not exclusively filled with guests. And there are also, here and there, dotted around on the top level and also at the bottom of the staircase, guards. Insight.
Ah, that's good for me. That's a 19.
Nice.
That is nice.
Actually, no, that's a 20. 2 for wisdom, 5 for proficiency. So, 20.
Cool. It's obvious that although this is a party, this is still a town at war. People are dressed lavishly for the occasion. This is not how they dress normally. There is still a sense of threat and danger in the air, and people are putting on a good face. it's obviously important to them whatever is occurring, and they are taking time out of what is otherwise a solemn and dangerous time for them in order to deal with what they have to deal with. As you are looking around the room, you see 40, 50 adult Komodo, and between their legs and around them dash younger, smaller Komodo. A couple of them are play fighting. They have small wooden swords, and as they gush around through the legs, and a few of the adults sort of get out of their way. One laughs heartily, and then one of their parents comes over and says, "No, this is not the..." In common, which you actually do understand. "This is not the place. Go. If you're going to do that, outside." As you're watching this, a large, rotund Komodo, dressed in fine clothing, wearing on the top of his head, not over his face, but on the top, perched on the top of his face, a mask similar to the silver dragon head that you saw before, suddenly appears on the top balcony level. And he calls down to the assembled guests below. And he says, "Friends, brothers, sisters, thank you for coming at this solemn time. Our losses are fresh, but that makes it even more important that we observe the solemn rites on this, the day of the Feast of the Dragon." And around you, you see people nodding, and they are very much engaged. They're looking up at him. He says, "My lady will be with us shortly. She is tending to her sister. As you will know, today we lost a member of our family. My sister-in-law is sore at this loss." And around you, you hear mumbles and grumbles, and you hear, both in common and also in the language you didn't hear before, or you didn't understand before, the word of katafu, spits, and that kind of action. He says to the assembled guests, "Please do not make this time of mourning interfere too heavily with the solemn and important rituals of feasting, celebration, and devotion that we must show to our God. Makahiro is great. His people are many, and we shall fight until our last survivor to ensure that his great dynasty is continued on this land and within these forests of Rashtul." And at that point, everyone around you cries out, "Rashtul Komodo! Rashtul Komodo!" And you get the sense that this is their war cry and their cry of ownership, and it is in marked conflict to a similar one that you heard in the Katafu room. He steps back as if to head back towards one of the chambers. At this point, you are free to investigate the party. Where would you like to go, and what would you like to do?
Can I see where Rom and his friend went? Like, can I see them amongst the revelers, or do they blend in perfectly?
Roll me a perception check.
11.
Critical success.
Yeah.
Nice.
You see off to one side in the corner of the room, you see Zan, and he is stood behind this tall, noble-looking Komodo, and you can see that he's nodding along enthusiastically in that kind of way that people do when they don't fully understand what's going on. But he's like implying that he's understood, and he says, you can hear him, you can see that he's talking and he's engaging. Do you walk up to him?
Yes, I will.
As you walk up to him, you hear him talk, and he's putting on this very silly accent, which sounds similar to the Komodo, but not identical. And he's saying things to the extent of, yes, the stupid Katafu, oh, I can't wait till they're all wiped from the earth. He is... Roll insight.
10.
His tongue is firmly in his cheek.
Mm-hmm.
His companion that he's speaking to does not know that. He is absolutely convinced that this is one of him. This is one of his kind. You do not see any sign of Rom in this room. Rom has disappeared.
Well, I approach them having this conversation. What's the accent sound like?
Oh wow. This is brave.
It's croaky and toothy.
Like Welsh, basically.
Oh gosh.
This could be the end of the career we're seeing tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not even.
Just
gonna
commit to something and I'll go with it.
Good day to you, brothers. On this great day to Mahakirio, I wish I could just borrow my companion for a minute.
I'm impressed.
Roll performance at advantage.
Yes!
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 That's 20.
He looks not Zan looks at you, and he's a little confused. And he nods. He says, "Of course. You must be from out of town. It is great to have visitors here from the great city at this important time."
Of course. We must come together in these times as Komodo, as brothers.
He looks you straight in the eye. He nods, and he retreats off to talk to a smaller party, not too far away. Zan is stood there.
Oh, thank God I don't have to do that.
Zan grabs you round the shoulder with a glee and says, "What a great trick! We better talk to everyone. You're much better at this than I am." No. What's everyone else doing?
I'm heading to the bar, fairly obviously.
Cool.
Can I? The other two have buggered off, haven't they, completely? I don't see these two.
Roll a perception check.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's not a massive room, but it's
No,
busy
okay.
and full.
Ooh, 15.
Yep, you clock what you think are the two people that you came in with.
Yeah.
Over in the corner having a little conversation.
Absolutely. I'm going to go over and say to Zan, how do I say 2 more drinks, please?
Zan looks at you and he says, "It's all in the throat. 2 more drinks, please."
All right, I'll see what I can do.
Brina, what's Brina doing?
Not talking to anyone, first of all. What can I see in the room? Like, what is there? Is there anything that would help me understand a little bit more about the Komodo and what they're up to here?
The staircase that you saw in the room is to the left-hand side, and
This
when you saw the guy on the roof, on the balcony, he appeared pretty much directly in front of you on the balcony. Below him, carved into the wall, is a large version of the silver dragon's head that you saw outside in the alcoves. Around that are arrayed tables. There's a big table raised on a stone dais, and on that table are plates of fruit and various candles, torches. In front of it is a long barrow filled with like a pitch, which is lit, which is giving the room this warm orange glow and filling it with a sort of paraffin-y smell, which adds to the sort of sweet and sickening smell from the flowers outside as well.
So I can probably assume that's all the offerings to their god they were talking about a minute ago.
As you look, you see small groups of people, families you assume, wander up to the altar and place whatever they had brought with them onto the altar as an offering and as a gift. Roll me a perception check.
16.
What you suddenly are aware of, now that your two compatriots have moved off, is that inadvertently, you and Noggin have found yourself in a queue
How British of us.
of these small groups of families as they make their way towards the altar. And before you can really pay attention, you realise that you are not the back of that queue anymore. There are more groups behind you, and you are imperceptibly moving towards the head of the queue.
We look like kids, right?
You look like young kids.
So it'd be adorable if we got some flowers and put them up there and everyone would be like, that's really cute.
He can't tell you that, I don't think.
We could try it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
What do you say to Noggin?
Get some flowers out. We're going to put them on the altar.
Okie dokie.
Yeah.
Get some flowers and tie them up. Whatever.
Roll a performance check.
Oh, please be good.
A 14?
Yeah, you tie it all together. What do you use to tie it with? You put them all together. It looks quite pretty.
I have I have 14 shiny things. Some copper, some silver, some squashed tin. And
Put them all together.
hopefully out of those things I can
String something together.
string something together. It might be a bit of a long bit of squashed tin that I can wrap around, squish around the flowers.
Okay, yeah, I'll go with that.
I'm happy to help her with that if that.
Miscellaneous shiny things. that
I've
she
made
knew
you
I'm
roll
coming
performance
in for.
already, so
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's good. It's homespun, I think, is the word that people would use to describe it.
Trying to be adorable children.
And as you make your way, you suddenly find yourselves at the head of the queue, and the people move ahead. And in front of you is the table with all of the things laid on it.
How tall is it compared to us?
It's about eye height with you as your gnome form, but obviously you appear to everyone else to be about a foot taller than you are.
So our head's like just above the top of the table.
Yeah.
Alright, cool. Should we put them on and then scurry off? Yeah. So put them on and then just scurry off.
As they do so, a couple of the Komodo around the table look across, natural one, look across, and they kind of make sighing faces and eyes, and they're sort of like, oh, that's kind of cute, but there's an underlying sense of sadness that plays across their faces as well.
Can I roll insight on that?
Yes.
Maybe. 14.
Many of them have lost children. This war goes on. This war continues, and the Komodo have not been winning. The Komodo are very much on the losing side at the moment, and so seeing the young around, fills them with a sense of purpose and drive, but it also fills them with this deep sense of sadness at the loss and the potential loss that may yet come. At that moment, appearing on the balcony above your heads, the larger Komodo man returns, and he is having a animated conversation with a female Komodo by his side, a muscular, strong, well-dressed, but not ostentatiously dressed Komodo woman. She, in comparison, where he wears the silver dragon's mask on his head, she, instead of that, wears just a small pendant with the dragon symbol on her chest, which nestles on her breastbone, and around her are tied very simple, almost like tapestry type clothing. The animated conversation that they are having, I would say that you two are close enough to be able to maybe overhear part of it in your current position.
Okay. Oh, wrong perception.
Roll perception, please.
18.
17.
You hear her say to him, "I can't convince her. She's set on a course. We must ignore it for now. It's vitally important that this evening goes off smoothly and our people are happy. The Feast of the Dragon has not yet been disturbed." And he turns to look at her and says, with a kind of knowing look in his eyes and a sort of solemn shaking of his head, he says, "Mahakirio will not be happy that one of our number is missing this solemn feast, especially for..." And at this point he turns to look around the room to see whether anyone is paying attention to what he is saying. He doesn't spot anyone. He looks around the room and sees people enjoying themselves, and he says, "Especially for such a dangerous and downright unnecessary mission as this." And at that he turns to look out over the room ahead of him, and he enters into a long, rambling, pious speech about why Mahakirio is wonderful and why you are all here to pay devotion to him. And at that point, I'm going to pause this hour. Thank you very much.
Nice one, man.
Thank you very much for coming. We are on 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. every day for Fringe. We are also live streaming on twitch.tv/adventurouswanted, and we are live tweeting at adventurous250. Can always come back and see more or buy a play ticket and get involved. But now I'm just going to hand over to someone at the table who has a show to plug.
I am in a show called Beetledom Alpha, which is at the Iron Belly in the Underbelly in Cowgate. It is a clown show about a clown who manages to break the universe.
Grand.
Everyday occurrence for us.
Every day, yeah.
We've got one final quick changeover for the day, so it's just how the thoughts that came through. But thank you very much for coming. Have a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Wonderful, thank you so much.
Right.
See you later, sweet.
Live stream.
Nice dream. See you in a minute.